Ciao e bentornati, welcome back to PILLOLE D'ITALIANO. Nell'episodio di oggi, episodio numero 108, daremo un'occhiata ad un gruppo di verbi molto particolare. We're going to have a look at a group of verbs that are a bit weird, they're bizarre, in the way that you conjugate them. You would not expect the way that they are conjugated starting from the infinitive, but it's the same behavior for the whole group. So once you learn what to do with one, you know what to do with them all. But before we jump in, a word from our sponsor, which is yours truly. As some of you may know, I'm going to launch my Italian crash course again very, very soon. Start date is September 18th. It's a 10-week course that combines pre-recorded material with live interactions with yours truly, Q&As, conversation groups, so that you can actually maximize practice time. You can ask me all the questions you might have, but you can study the biggest chunk of grammar on your own. So if you live in a time zone that is not really around the corner from where I live, well, you don't have to worry. You don't need to set your alarm for 4 a.m. to come and participate in live classes. If I can say so myself, this course is really great because it's going to condense the essential knowledge that you will need to become fluent in Italian in 10 weeks only. If you're starting from scratch, this is great for you. But also, if you've been studying Italian for a while, I will make sure that you don't have gaps in your knowledge, so that by the end of those 10 weeks, you will have all the essential grammatical elements to be able to formulate all of your sentences, statements, questions, and this way you will have all the instruments to be able to start listening to native content, or if you're already doing that, you will be able to better understand it. And throughout those 10 weeks, you will also be able to come and participate in the group conversations that I lead every week so that you can practice. We make sure that you put into practice what you will be learning, because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? So that's a tricky spot for a lot of people when they're learning a different language, is actually to put it into practice. And by doing so under my supervision, getting feedback on a weekly basis means that you will be able to progress in your language journey way faster than you would have ever thought possible. Now, the great news for you is the fact that in the next couple of weeks, I'm offering the chance to speak live with me one-on-one and for free, so that you can come ask me all the questions you might have about this program. We can decide together if you're a good fit and which one of the different tiers is the one that makes sense for you. And also, if you're curious to see what my conversation group is all about, it's called Aperitivo Italiano, in case you don't know it. It's an Italian happy hour, and you will find a link in the description of this episode below to come and register for a trial session. So both the one-on-one call with me and the trial session of Aperitivo are complimentary. Now, feel free to pause this video, go click on the link, save your spot before this offer expires or spots run out. Ok, torniamo al video di oggi. Have you ever noticed how some very commonly used Italian verbs will end in ISCO when you're using them at the present tense for the first person singular, so talking about yourself? You might be familiar with the verb capisco. Capisco, I understand, because that's probably the first thing you needed to learn to be able to say I don't understand for people that were speaking too fast. Non capisco, right? Mi dispiace, non capisco. So capisco comes from the verb capire. If you were to apply the general rule of how to conjugate an Italian verb for the io, the first person singular, right? The io person, you should say capo, but it is not. It's capisco. I'm not going to get into the whole explanation historically of why that is. Blame it on Latin. We always blame it on Latin when something weird happens in Italian, but there is a sizable group of verbs that behaves in the same way. Now, brace yourself. We're talking about more than 1,000 verbs. I'm not kidding. I probably don't even know them all. I'm not going to recite them all. Don't worry. Today, I only want to focus on 4 of them. Okay? That should be manageable. Now, I compiled a list of 113 high-frequency verbs, and I make that list available to my ICC subscribers, the people that actually sign up for the Italian crash course. But today, I'm going to share 4 of those verbs with you, because 4 of them, 4 of the most frequently used Italian verbs actually behave in this way. So we see in capire, to understand, that becomes capisco. Another verb that behaves in the same way is preferire. Preferire, to prefer. So I would say preferisco. Preferisco il tè al caffè. True story. I'm probably the only Italian who doesn't really drink coffee that much. Preferisco il tè al caffè. Yeah, because I prefer tea to coffee. And now the third verb that behaves in the same way is the verb pulire. Pulire, to clean. So when you want to say I clean, you will say pulisco. Pulisco casa una volta a settimana. I clean home, meaning I clean my home, once a week. Pulisco casa una volta alla settimana. And the last verb of today's episode, it's so apropos, is actually the verb finire, to finish, to end, because finire becomes finisco. Okay, let me give you a very personal example. Quando apro un pacchetto di patatine, finisco sempre per mangiarne troppe. Quando apro un pacchetto di patatine, when I open a bag of chips, finisco sempre per mangiarne troppe. I always end up eating too many of them. True story. Adesso tocca a te. Now it's your turn. I want you to be a bit of a detective in a sense. Whatever Italian resource you are using right now, it could be listening to a podcast, following a TV show, reading a book, whatever resource you're using in Italian, that will be your playground, so to speak. I just want you to keep doing whatever you're doing, reading, watching, listening, paying particular attention to a verb that you might hear ending in ISCO. Of course, if it's not conjugated for the io person, then you will hear isci or isce or iscono. So isci, like pulisci, that will be for you. Isce, like in capisce, will be for lui, lei. And iscono, preferiscono, that will be for loro. Just pay attention. If you hear any of these endings, then you're onto something. That means that you found another verb that behaves in the same way. Of course, I want you to try and stretch yourself. So the 4 verbs that I mentioned today, they're not an option. But if you find an additional one, as I said, there are more than 1,000 verbs that behave this way. So if you find an additional one, just put it in the comment below. Share it with me, with the community. If you find multiples, maybe share your favorite one. Have fun, divertitevi. Buona caccia, happy hunting. Leave whatever you find in the comment section below. Also, let me know if you want an additional episode on these verbs. Fatemi sapere se ne avete bisogno. And before you go, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you're new to it, and I will see you super soon. Ciao, a presto!